You've probably admitted that you were wrong before and somebody rubbed your face in it. And then, from there, you stopped admitting you were wrong. Or it just became harder to do. You became more dead set on sticking to your guns, on double downing on something that you know deep down you probably weren't right for. And might I say that this is completely natural, it's completely understandable, we're all guilty of it. Where this is unacceptable, though, is in a relationship. And I include friendships. And what we do in a relationship is we keep this invisible scoreboard. We are tallying up who has been right the most times, who has been wrong the most times. You always are just trying to win. Because you're always trying to get this leverage, you're always trying to get the moral high ground. And a lot of people do this. Again, I have to stress that it's not just in relationships that are romantic, but these people do this in their friendships. People do this with their family. And were we to have a healthier sort of standard where if you admitted you were wrong and it was understood that your intention was to never do it again or to try your hardest not to do it again, and that effort was visible, we could get this thing going. Because it's a fresh start each time. Each time as soon as you admit you're wrong, you alleviate that tension, you alleviate that conflict, and you can start over again. But I have to stress, I have to admit that this is difficult when someone lords it over your head, when you know someone's keeping it in their back pocket to use against you. That is not great. But I say this, if you are in such a relationship, is that relationship worthy of being in? Because I know we become desensitized to anything. We have all kinds of horrible habits and unhealthy shit that's killing us, to me. And I know killing seems like an exaggeration. It seems hyperbolic. But I think this shit kills us. Slowly but surely. And we get used to it. And so used to it to the point where some people say if you're not fighting in a relationship, something's wrong. You know how many times I've heard that before? People say that. That if you're not fighting, if there's not drama of some kind. And you know how many times I've heard people basically admit that they prefer that there's some issues, that there's some fighting, that there's some drama. My thing about that right quick is just that this fear of a dramaless environment, this fear of a void of tension and conflict. Let me tell you, man, being a human for me is laborious enough. There's enough conflict in my head on a daily, weekly basis, enough to fill that void. I mean, I think that if you really need that tension and that conflict, you are very lucky then. But I think that's bullshit though. Cause what I'm saying is that if you need that tension, that conflict, the implication must mean that otherwise you're good. There's no drama. There's no stress anywhere else in your life. But I don't think that's the case. I think we just become desensitized. Then we engage in just all these negative momentums, and these things become normal to us. These things become just a common factor, and we see everyone else engage in it. So what's wrong with it? But back to the benefit and the beauty of admitting that you're wrong. What needs to happen here is there needs to be an objective. Do you ever ask yourself whether or not you have an objective in when you engage in whatever conflict that's going on, or when you're trying to speak your mind to somebody you care about? Do you have an objective ultimately? And if you don't, that's great, because now you have an opportunity to think about that, an opportunity to create one. I think that it is super beneficial to consciously understand within your own self what your objective is. And for me, one of the healthiest things, one of the best things, is to have an objective of harmony. That's all I want. I don't care that you're wrong. All I want is for you to know and admit it, and for us to just move on and behave appropriately with each other, respectfully with each other, lovingly with each other. And again, I'm including friendships, family, and just in romantic relationships. It's every relationship, every kind. If you have an objective to just want them to understand you, and then in turn for you to understand them, and in turn, and lastly, for there to be ultimately a harmony there, then admitting you're wrong isn't such a big deal. It's not such a problem because there's no, again, take that invisible scoreboard off the mother effing wall. Get it out of here. Save that for the actual games. This world defeats us because we play those games when we go to work. We play those games with just random people or people that are kind of our friends and people that are really our friends. We all just fall into what essentially are these bad habits and we're on autopilot. And we don't really have any role models. We don't have anybody to really to look to at times and say, oh, that's a good example of a healthy relationship. Where are the fucking healthy relationships? It is my theory, it's my feeling that just like most people are unhealthy in all kinds of ways, psychologically, physically, and all this stuff on an individual basis, I think most people's relationships are unhealthy as hell. But here's the thing, if that's the standard that they are both abiding by, fine. But as long as you're really acknowledging that that's okay with you. But if you're just kind of accidentally, haphazardly dealing with it, or just engaged in that, then there's a way out. You don't have to be. And so, but having an objective, it makes this superiority, inferiority thing, this I got this point, you got this point thing, it makes it go away. Because now you have a much, much higher, purer standard, a more sophisticated objective. And not just to rub it in someone's face. And the other thing is that it's not about admitting that you were wrong and then now it's like I can never do it again or I'm going to hear it. See, I just want to tell you how I personally feel about mistakes and flawed behavior. I'm a severely flawed human being. And like on my Instagram, I really mean those words when I said I'm a weak person trying to be smarter. And I'm a weak person trying to be stronger. And I mean that in every way. And I am a stupid person trying to become smarter. I am stupid naturally. And every time I forget that and act like I'm not, that's when I make mistakes. And that's when I sort of forget myself. And I do asshole-ish kind of things or just whatever flawed kind of things. But my feeling about that is it's not so much what the standard that I have for myself and the standard that I apply to other people, if they so accept, is that it's not necessarily about the mistake or the wrong. It's more so about how quickly are you willing to rebound from it? Because I don't play that shit with myself or with other people where you do something, like let's say something like really glaringly, obviously wrong. That it's obvious. I've been there, I've done this, and I'm sure you've done this. I don't know. When you do something wrong and you just don't want to say it, you don't want to recognize it, you don't want to confront it, and you kind of sweep it under the rug for days or hours. That shit is whack. Leaving the other person to stew and linger, leaving the other person to go without closure. You need closure, especially with people you care about and love. It's a very unsettling feeling to have your loved ones wrong you and for them to not address it. And that's the norm. It's a normal thing, right? Someone you care about wrongs you and they don't mention it. They act like it never happened. And they just want to act. Sometimes I've seen this in relationships, with people's relationships. I've seen people do it to me. They wrong you. And then they want to just act like nothing happened. I'm sure I've done that. But like in my recent life, I would detest myself for doing such a thing. And if I were to do it, it would be completely accidentally. But, that's fucked up. You're leaving the other person to stew in their resentment, to stew in their uncertainty as to where you both stand. The harmony has been tainted, has been broken, has been disrupted. You have to mend the harmony back. Don't let it go like that. So my standard is, if me being the flawed person I am, if I do something wrong, to me it's about how long it takes for me to rebound from that. And when I say rebound from that, like how quickly am I snapping back to this place of humility, this place of self-awareness where I'm like, oh shit, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I say I'm sorry. I love saying I'm sorry in a very masochistic way. Like I don't mind anymore. Like getting on my knees and being like like in Japanese style, bowing my head. I am so sorry. And I'll mean it, like I'll mean the shit out of it too. I'm not acting, because There's nothing. You can find strength and joy in what do you call it? Solace in. There is a burden that's lifted when you straight up apologize. Now the nonsense comes in when you apologize and don't mean it, or like when you just, frequency matters. So the one thing that matters to me is how quickly you rebound from it and you apologize. And because apology indicates that you regret your behavior, and that indicates that you are going to make every effort to not do it again. And so that's what matters the most to me. It's not so much the error, but rather like, are you going to try to do something about it so it's not a frequent thing? Because most people's actions, negative actions, tend to be these habits. They tend to be very frequent, and so that's no good. You're gonna like, it's no good just apologizing 100 times just to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Get that out of here. And so that's the one standard. And secondly is that the frequency. How often is it happening? I get it if it's happening every 2 days, every 4 days, weekly, monthly, or whatever, but it's happening all the time. It depends on your individual tolerance level too, as far as the wrong that's committed by a person. I definitely have super high standards. Again, I apply these to myself. I have a high standards for my own social self, for my own actions, and for how I treat myself and how I treat others. I strive and I aspire to be completely and utterly respectful and considerate and thoughtful. I fail like hell, but I'm saying that's what I strive for. And so if someone else is kind of on an opposite page, then I don't know how they can be in my life. And so, but that may not be your standard. You may have something, I'm not going to say that you have a worse standard, but you may have a standard where your tolerance is different. You really truly aren't affected by some of the things that might affect me. And so cool, but know what your standard is. Have your objective, and have your objective be something pure. Get the scoreboard out of here. Stop trying to win. Stop trying to beat them over the head with it. Stop racking up points. It doesn't matter. Stop thinking you're superior and they're inferior and whatnot. Strive to have the harmony. Care about having ultimately just a good, healthy relationship. And I think if that's what you care about more than anything else, the health of it all, then admitting you're wrong ain't nothing. Admitting you're wrong is just taking your medicine. Admitting you're wrong is just doing what makes sense. And accepting somebody saying that they're wrong and taking it with gracefully and magnanimously. I'm magnanimous in victory, as a Simpsons reference. That's how it should roll, man. I believe that. I really do. Namaste.